Well, what we're saying today is that PIP will continue, but it's going to be reformed. We're going to create a new version of it, and we're going to ask those people who have mild conditions, principally mental health conditions, to be reassessed. I think that's commonsensical, because we see the vast increase that we've had in recent times of those conditions. For other people, what we're proposing today will actually be better. We'll provide more security, because instead of being reassessed on a rolling 3-year basis, these are people with serious disabilities, we're going to give them the peace of mind that I think they deserve. And we're going to say that they're not going to be reassessed for the next 3 years.
Well, there you go. This is GB News Originals. I'm Emily Carver. Please do give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. And do leave a comment. Let me know what you think.
And then they'll be reassessed in the normal way thereafter. So for the people who really need the benefits the most, this is actually a significantly enhanced position with greater security.
And those reassessments should be face-to-face as opposed to online. And part of the tragedy of the current system is people are literally being written off, and they're not even being reassessed online, let alone face-to-face. And the tragedy of writing off people of any age, but in particular young people, has to stop. It's basic common sense as well as being fair. That, of course, too many people on benefits actually want to work, but they are now trapped in a system where they can't get off the benefits escalator. And what a disaster that is. What a waste that is for individuals, for their family, and also for their local community. So many people want to work, but they're currently trapped in a system that prevents it. And that surely means that it needs reform. And likewise, as part of the system, PIP, well-intentioned, just like the benefit system, well-intentioned, but again, at the moment, it's not working. That's the reality, and the cost is going through the roof. And what we're saying is, in order to absolutely guarantee that all of our existing British citizens who are currently on PIP, who need PIP, in order to protect them and support them so that we guarantee that they will remain on PIP as long as they need it, we have to reform the current system. We have to reform it for future claims, and we have to reform it for overseas nationals. I think most people, when you step back and you think, let's look at this, is it fair that overseas nationals come to the UK, don't work, and ultimately cost the British taxpayer a lot of money and put at risk that issue of whether we can protect and support our own? And I think most people would reasonably say, actually, that's not fair. And we Brits, we're very focused on fairness. So we have to make some significant changes and adjustments to the existing system in order to ensure that we can guarantee it and protect it for the future, and protect our pensioners, protect the triple lock, and those other things that are so important to support those in need of that help. That's why this is the right thing to do. That's why the detail that you're going to hear in a second from Robert Jenrick has been looked at over a long period of time. And is it easy? No, it's complicated. But is it fair and right to go the extra mile in order to ensure that we make it work, we make it a world-leading system, we continuously improve it? Absolutely. And I'd like to think that anybody of any party or no party would say, yeah, this is actually a journey that we should all get behind in order to help those genuinely in need. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Robert Jenrick to come and give the detail of this policy. Robert.
Speech. Robert Jenrick, the Treasury spokesman, is now about to speak and set out their plans to massively cut the welfare bill.
And moral society is judged by how it treats the powerful, but also by how it protects the vulnerable. Those are the words of John Stuart Mill, the 19th century MP and philosopher. And they're as true today as they were when he wrote them. That is the measure of a society and a country. It was a baton picked up by William Beveridge in his 1940s work, which laid the foundations for the modern welfare state as we know it today. But he understood that to ensure fairness in this new system, there would need to be a new social contract, which conferred both rights and responsibilities. He said a cooperation between the state and the individual. The state would give security for service and contribution, but it would not stifle incentive, opportunity, and responsibility. We would receive benefit in return for contribution, rather than always free allowances from the state. And for those of us who couldn't work because of physical disability or conditions which meant we had no choice, they would always be protected. The state, the community, would step in so that they could live their lives to the fullest possible extent. It's these principles, ladies and gentlemen, which guide Reform's approach to welfare today. Those in need, pensioners, children, the vulnerable, our armed forces veterans, will always be protected under a Reform government. It is part of who we are. It is part of what drove each and every one of us into politics. It's why our party's banner is family, community, country. But for those who break the social contract, who act for whatever reason, out of selfishness, to take from the community when their family, their friends, their neighbors, their colleagues all really know that they don't need it, there will have to be a change of approach to restore fairness. It's accepted now, I believe, that the bond that William Beveridge spoke about has been broken. I've certainly heard it all over the country, in countless conversations on the doorsteps in my own constituency. I think everybody in this room has heard it in conversations that they've had themselves. Why has this happened? Partly because politicians in the Labour Party believed that they could buy votes by simply doling out more and more cash with fewer and fewer checks. Also, partly because the Tories, my former party, latterly were too afraid to uphold Beveridge's principles for fear of a backlash. As a result, by 2031, the annual tax burden to pay for welfare on every family in Britain will reach £7,000 a year. Some of that money, a lot of that money, is paying for those people who are in genuine need, on pensions for...
Reform UK's welfare bombshell. Robert Jenrick's plan to rip up Britain's benefits system is going to have people talking for weeks. Robert Jenrick stood up and laid out a welfare shake-up so sweeping that even his own critics are struggling to argue with the numbers. Before we get into it, if you're new here, this is Britain Underneath, the channel that actually tells you what's happening beneath the headlines, not the sanitized version. So hit that subscribe button now, because trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming in this one. All right, let's dive in. Here's the headline figure that should stop you in your tracks. Reform UK say their welfare overhaul would save the country more than £50 billion a year and get well over 200,000 people back into work. That is not a rounding error. That is not a footnote. That is a number big enough to reshape the entire debate about what the British state is actually for. So, what's actually in the plan? Robert Jenrick, Reform's Treasury spokesman, opened by going straight for what he called the foreign welfare rip-off. Under a Reform government, he says, only British citizens would be entitled to benefits, with a handful of limited exceptions. His argument is blunt. The welfare state exists for Britain. No citizenship, no entitlement. He put a number on it too, claiming the change alone would save taxpayers around £21 billion a year by 2029. Now, whether you think that's fair, or whether you think it's harsh, you cannot deny it is a message designed to land hard with voters who feel the system has stopped working for them. And speaking of landing hard, if this kind of straight-talking political breakdown is what you're after, you already know what to do. Subscribe to Britain Underneath and never miss one of these again. Then came the part that's really got people talking, the so-called welfare-to-work policy. Jenrick wants long-term benefit claimants who are fit to work to put in 20 hours a week doing community work, cleaning up high streets, tidying parks, basic repairs, staffing libraries. He didn't dress it up. Now, whether you think that's fair or whether you think it's harsh, you cannot deny it is a message designed to land hard with voters who feel the system has stopped working for them. And speaking of landing hard, if this kind of straight-talking political breakdown is what you're after, you already know what to do. Subscribe to Britain Underneath and never miss one of these again. Then came the part that's really got people talking, the so-called welfare-to-work policy. Jenrick wants long-term benefit claimants who are fit to work to put in 20 hours a week doing community work, cleaning up high streets, tidying parks, basic repairs, staffing libraries. He didn't dress it up. His words were that people who've been taking everyone else for mugs are going to find that stops under a reform government. Refuse to take part, and the penalties kick in. Refuse to show up, and the payments stop. Jenrick was crystal clear on this point. He said if someone is capable of work and refuses it, they get nothing. And in his words, that's fair. Now here's where it gets properly interesting. The numbers behind the rhetoric. Jenrick told the room that there are 6.6 million working-age people in the UK currently claiming out-of-work benefits. Disability and incapacity claims, he said, have doubled in under a decade, with more than 4 million people now claiming. His line was sharp, and it was meant to be. Britain, he said, is not twice as sick as it was a few years ago. Take a breath there for a second, because that's the kind of statement that either makes you nod along or makes you deeply uncomfortable. And honestly, that tension is exactly why this story matters. If you want more of this no-nonsense breakdown of British politics, Britain Underneath is the place, so make sure that subscribe button is lit up. Jenrick also pointed to the household impact, warning that the average tax burden per family is on track to hit £7,000 a year by 2031 to keep the welfare system afloat. He was careful to say some of that spending genuinely helps pensioners and people with serious disabilities, but argued too much of it isn't reaching the people who actually need it. He didn't hold back on where he thinks the blame sits either, accusing the Labour Party of trying to buy votes for years by handing out cash with fewer and fewer checks attached. Of course, this didn't go unanswered. The Conservatives hit straight back. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride pointed to his own welfare reforms after the pandemic. Reforms he says Labour branded divisive and scrapped, letting the benefits bill keep climbing. Stride accused reform of flip-flopping, pointing to their reversal on the two-child benefit cap, and dismissed the new figures as fantasy numbers that simply don't add up. His verdict was that only the Conservatives have a credible plan here, while Labour, in his words, are failing to grip the scale of the problem altogether. There was also a bit of party drama simmering underneath all this. Reform's deputy leader Richard Tice was asked directly whether he was losing patience with colleague Zia Youssef after reports suggested Nigel Farage himself had called on him following a controversial social media remark. Tice shut that down fast, insisting Yousif is doing a brilliant job and putting the rumours down to a quiet August news cycle. So where does this leave us? A welfare system under genuine strain, a party promising radical surgery, and rivals calling it fantasy. Whichever side of this you land on, one thing's certain. The welfare debate in this country is about to get a lot louder. That's exactly the kind of story Britain underneath exists to unpack properly, without the spin either side wants you to swallow. If you made it this far, thank you for sticking with it, because this is the kind of channel that only works with viewers who actually want the full picture, not the 30-second version. So please, hit subscribe, tap that bell, and come back, because there is a lot more happening underneath the surface of British politics right now, and you want to be here for it.